The mining station floated silently in the asteroid belt, its metal hull gleaming under the distant sun. Inside, Chief Administrator Yelana moved through the corridors with practiced ease, her forearms checking data tablets as workers bustled. Around her, Zephyrians had been mining rare crystals from these floating rocks for over 20 years, and today seemed no different from any other. Yelana paused at the observation deck, watching the automated mining ships tear chunks of valuable ore from nearby asteroids. Her large, dark eyes reflected the peaceful scene. The colony housed nearly 10,000 souls, all working together in harmony far from their home world. That administrator called her assistant Kevin, his voice carrying a note of concern. Long-range sensors are picking up something strange. Turned to face him, noting how his usually calm demeanor seemed shaken. What kind of strange? Ships, ma'am. Military vessels dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of our system. They're not responding to our identification requests. Yelana felt a chill run through her body. Military ships in this remote sector could only mean trouble. She hurried to the command center, her steps quick and purposeful. The main screen showed dozens of red dots approaching their position at high speed. Analysis. She demanded Lieutenant Furdock. Their security chief pulled up the sensor data. 37 vessels, heavy cruiser class and above. Configuration matches Vector hegemony design patterns. The command center fell silent. Everyone knew about the hegemony, a ruthless empire that expanded through conquest and slavery. Their ships were painted blood red, and they showed no mercy to those who stood in their way. "Why would they come here?" whispered Kevin. "We're neutral. We don't take sides in galactic politics." Yelana's hands trembled as she reached for the communications panel. "This is Zephyrian Mining Colony, Tertia 7 to approaching vessels. Please state your intentions." The reply came immediately, the voice cold and filled with contempt. "This system now belongs to the Vactar hegemony. You have 1 hour to evacuate before we begin salvage operations." "Salvage operations?" It's Yelana stared at the screen in horror. "This is our home. We have mining rights granted by the Galactic Council." Harsh laughter echoed through the speakers. "The Council is weak. We take what we want, when we want it. 1 hour, then we start shooting." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Yelana's mind raced through options, but she knew they had few choices. Colony had some defensive systems, but nothing that could stand against a full hegemony battle fleet. "Sound general evacuation," she ordered. "All non-essential personnel to the escape pods. Security teams to defensive positions." Alarms began wailing throughout the station as families hurried toward evacuation points. Children cried as their parents gathered personal belongings and rushed to the safety pods. The mining crews abandoned their equipment and ran for their lives. But the hegemony had no intention of waiting 1 hour. Plasma beams lanced out from the approaching warships, striking the colony's outer shields. The protective barriers held for a few seconds before collapsing under the overwhelming firepower. Explosions rocked the station as energy bolts tore through the hull. "Hull breaches on levels 12 through 18, shouted Furtok over the noise of screaming metal and rushing air. "Emergency bulkheads are sealing, but we're losing atmospheric pressure fast." Yelana watched in horror as the first wave of evacuation pods launched from the station, only to be vaporized by hegemony fighters. The red ships swooped through space like hunting birds, destroying anything that tried to escape. "They're killing civilians," Kavan gasped, his voice filled with disbelief. More plasma bolts hammered the station. The lights flickered and went out, replaced by the dim red glow of emergency power. Yelana could hear the groaning of stressed metal as the station's structure began to fail under the relentless assault. "Ma'am," Furtok called out, his voice strained. "Our defensive weapons are down. Communications to the Galactic Council are being jammed. We're completely cut off." Yelana stared at the tactical display, watching as more evacuation pods were destroyed. Thousands of her people were trapped and help was not coming. The Council's nearest patrol was weeks away, and the hegemony would finish their bloody work. Long before any rescue could arrive, Then she remembered something from her academy training. Lessons about emergency protocols that were supposed to never be used. Her hands moved to a hidden panel, revealing a restricted communications array. "Administrator, what are you doing?" Kayvon asked, his eyes wide with fear. "Something the council forbids," she replied, her fingers dancing across the controls. "Broadcasting. On the emergency frequencies to any ship in range, but those frequencies reach everyone, even the forbidden sectors." Yelana's face hardened with determination. "Then maybe someone from those forbidden sectors will answer." She opened the channel and began transmitting on every frequency her equipment could reach, sending her desperate plea into the darkness of space, hoping against hope that someone, anyone, would hear their call for help. The message raced through hyperspace toward a small blue world that most of the galaxy preferred to ignore. Of Luna Station, Earth's most advanced deep space monitoring facility. Communications Officer Kim Gin-ho nearly dropped his coffee mug as the translated alien message filled his screens. His hands shook as he read the desperate plea from a species he had never heard of. "We have a problem," Jin-ho called to. His supervisor, his voice tight with urgency, Commander Lee Taemin, hurried over, his boots clicking on the metal floor. "What is it, Jin-ho?" "Alien distress signal, sir. There, under attack by something called the Vector Hegemony. The transmission is coming from the Outer Rim, Sector 77 Alpha." Lee Taemin stared at the screen, reading the translated message twice. In his 15 years of monitoring space, he had never received anything like this. The United Earth Space Command had protocols for many situations, but not for alien civilizations asking for help. "Patch me through to Fleet Command immediately," he ordered within minutes. The emergency signal reached Admiral Park Min-ho aboard the battleship Incheon's Pride. The grizzled commander studied the message with cold, calculating eyes. At 55, he had seen more space battles than any other human alive, but he had never fought aliens before. "How long to reach their position?" he asked his navigation officer. 18 hours at maximum jump speed, sir," replied Lieutenant Choi Yoon-SEO.Park. Min-ho nodded slowly. "Signal the fleet. All ships prepare for immediate departure." "Combat loading, sir," interrupted his communications officer, Lieutenant Kim Sora. "We don't have authorization from Earth Command for this mission. First contact protocols require." "Those protocols assume peaceful contact," the Admiral cut her off. "This is a rescue mission. We'll ask for forgiveness later." The Third Deep Space Fleet consisted of 12 ships, 3 heavy cruisers, 6 destroyers, and 3 support vessels. They were humanity's newest and most powerful warships built for the conflicts that everyone knew were coming as Earth. Expanded into space, Captain Bae Jun-woo commanded the destroyer Soul's Hammer, one of the fastest ships in the fleet. He watched his crew scramble to prepare for combat as the fleet entered hyperspace. Their destination unknown except for a set of coordinates and a desperate alien plea for help. 18 hours later, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace. In a spectacular light show of twisted space and exotic particles, the ships emerged in formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that looked crude compared to the sleek alien vessels scattered across the battlefield. Admiral Park Min-ho studied the tactical display on his bridge. The alien mining station was badly damaged, venting atmosphere and debris into space. Around it floated the wreckage of destroyed evacuation pods and the twisted remains of small defensive platforms. "Sir, we're being hailed by the station," reported Kim Sora. "Let them through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a tall, thin alien with large dark eyes and 4 arms. Chief Administrator Yelana stared at the human commander with obvious shock, her mouth opening and closing without sound. "You came," she finally whispered. "The Deathworld answered our call." Ho raised an eyebrow. "Deathworld, your planet," Yelana explained, her voice shaking. "The Galactic Council classifies Earth as a death world. Your gravity, your weather, your oceans. They say nothing civilized could survive there. We're here to help," Min-ho replied simply. "What's your situation?" Before Yelena could answer, proximity alarms screamed through both fleets. The Vector ships had detected the human arrival and were moving to intercept. 37. Alien. Warships turned toward the small human force, their red hulls gleaming with menace. On the bridge of the hegemony flagship, Commander Thekovar studied the primitive human vessels with amusement. His reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile as he examined their crude, angular designs. "Deathworlders," he hissed to his bridge crew. "How amusing. Their metal shells look like something built in a scrapyard." His tactical officer, a smaller reptile with nervous eyes, pointed at his displays. "Sir, their weapon signatures are unusual. I'm not detecting standard plasma arrays or particle beams." The Kvar waved dismissively. "Primitives with primitive weapons. They'll flee once they see real civilized firepower." He opened a channel to the human fleet, his voice dripping with contempt. "Unknown vessels, you are interfering with hegemony military operations. Withdraw immediately or face destruction." Admiral Park Minho listened to the translated threat with growing anger. He had spent his entire career fighting those who preyed on the weak, and these alien bullies were no different from the pirates and warlords he had defeated in Earth's outer colonies. "This is Admiral Park Minho of the United Earth Space Command," he replied calmly. "You are attacking unarmed civilians. Stand down immediately." The Gvar's laughter echoed through the communications channel. "Earthers, your reputation precedes you. Savage barbarians who know nothing of civilized warfare, watch and learn." The hegemony fleet formed into an elegant battle line, their ships moving with practiced precision. Energy weapons began charging as they prepared to demonstrate their superiority over these crude Deathworld primitives. Admiral Park Minho watched the alien formation with professional interest. Then he smiled coldly and opened his fleet command channel. "All ships, prepare for combat. Show them what barbarians can do." The first human salvo erupted across space like thunder from ancient Earth storms, instead of the elegant energy beams. That civilized species used crude metal rods launched from human ships at impossible speeds. The tungsten projectiles accelerated to nearly light speed, punched through Vactar shields as if they were made of paper. Commander Thekvar's flagship shuddered violently as 3 kinetic rounds tore through its hull. Sparks flew from control panels as his bridge crew struggled to understand what had happened. In all his years of conquest, he had never faced weapons so primitive, yet so devastating. "Damage report," roared, his reptilian features twisted. With rage and confusion, "Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7, his tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. "Sir, they're using solid projectiles. No civilized species fights like this." On the human destroyer Soul's Hammer, Captain Bei Junwoo watched the enemy formation break apart as his kinetic cannons found their targets. The Vactor ships had been designed to fight other civilized species, who used energy weapons and followed established combat protocols. They were not prepared for humans who fought like wild animals. "Target their engines," Junwoo ordered calmly. "Cripple them so they can't run." Lieutenant Park Jimin, his weapons officer, grinned as she locked onto another hegemony cruiser. "Firing solution locked, sir. These aliens have no idea what hit them." More tungsten rods lanced through space, each one carrying the kinetic energy of a small nuclear bomb. Vactor shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, offered no protection against solid matter traveling at relativistic speeds, but the humans were just getting started. Captain Choi Jun-sik commanded the destroyer Gwangju's Revenge, and he had a reputation for aggressive tactics that made even other human commanders nervous. As the Vactor fleet tried to regroup, he led his squadron in a maneuver that horrified both sides. "All ships prepare for danger-close nuclear engagement," Jun-sik announced over the squadron channel. His 3 destroyers accelerated directly toward the enemy battle line, their nuclear-tipped missiles primed and ready. The Vactor ships tried to target them with plasma beams, but the human vessels weaved through the fire like dancers, their pilots pushing their ships to limits that would kill most alien species. "Sir, they're coming straight at us," screamed Vekvar's helmsman. "No sane commander would risk collision." "'Cause they're not sane," Vekvar snarled. "They're Deathworld savages." The human destroyers closed to point-blank range before launching their nuclear missiles. The Vactor point defense systems, designed for long-range combat, couldn't track targets so close and moving so fast. Nuclear fire bloomed between the ships as the warheads detonated mere kilometers from both fleets. Any civilized species would have been vaporized by the radiation, but the human ships continued fighting. Their crews, protected by crude but effective shielding, worked at their stations as if nuclear explosions were just another part of their daily routine. From the damaged Zephyrian station, Yelena watched the battle with growing amazement and terror. The humans fought like the demons from her people's ancient legends, showing no fear of death or injury. When one of their ships lost its main engines, she expected it to retreat for repairs. Instead, she watched in shock as human soldiers in bulky spacesuits crawled out onto the ship's hull while under enemy fire. They carried welding torches and metal patches, repairing their vessel in the middle of combat. Plasma beams from Vactar ships struck near them, but the humans just kept working. "They're fixing their ship during the battle," whispered Kevin, his 4 eyes wide with disbelief. In hard vacuum, under fire, with no protection but those primitive suits. Sergeant Han Yujin led the repair team on the crippled cruiser, Bison's Pride. Plasma bolts sizzled past his helmet as he welded a new armor plate over the damaged section. The vacuum of space meant nothing to him. He had trained for this his entire career. "Almost done, sir," he reported to Captain Lee Donghayan over the com. "Give me 30 more seconds." "You've got it, Sergeant. We'll keep him busy." The human ship fired another spread of kinetic rounds, even as Yujin worked on its hull. The combination of ongoing repairs and continued combat seemed impossible to the watching aliens, but it was just another day for Earth's warriors. Meanwhile, the Vactar fleet found itself in full retreat. Their elegant formations had been shattered by the human assault. Their commanders couldn't adapt to tactics that seemed to ignore every rule of civilized warfare. "Sir, we're losing ships faster than we can count," reported Vekvar's tactical officer. "They're not following any known combat doctrine. It's like fighting wild beasts." Vekvar stared at the tactical display, watching his superior numbers mean nothing against human savagery. His ships were designed for honorable combat between civilized species, not this barbaric free-for-all. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. Through gritted teeth, full retreat to the hyperspace jump point. But Admiral Park Minho wasn't finished. As the Vactor ships tried to escape, his fleet pursued them relentlessly, their crude weapons continuing to tear through alien hulls. The message was clear: attack innocent civilians, and the Deathworlders would make you pay. The survivors of the Hegemony fleet limped away into hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of their arrogance and the growing legend of human military might. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire through dry grass. Within hours of the battle, every major communication network carried the same impossible story: the Deathworlders had intervened in galactic affairs and crushed a Hegemony fleet. Species that had never heard of humans suddenly found themselves learning about Earth and its savage inhabitants on the gleaming capital world of Silos Prime. Ambassador Veltane paced his marble office with growing panic. The tall, blue-skinned diplomat had spent decades maintaining the careful balance of galactic politics. And now, primitive barbarians had shattered everything with their crude weapons. "This is a disaster," he muttered to his aide, his 3 eyes blinking rapidly with stress. The Council specifically voted to keep the Deathworlders isolated. Now they're flying around space, attacking civilized fleets. His aide, a younger Solorian named Kextal, studied the battle reports with fascination. "Sir, according to these sensor logs, the humans were defending the Zephyrian colony. The Hegemony fired first." "That's not the point," Beltane snapped. "The point is that savages are now involved in our affairs. Do you have any idea what they're capable of? If their planet kills everything that tries to live there?" Across the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place in government buildings, military headquarters, and private homes. The Galactic Council had kept Earth's location secret for good reason. Humans were considered too dangerous to contact. Now that secret was out. No one knew what would happen next. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened on the neutral world of Harmony Station. Representatives from 47 species gathered in the Great Assembly Hall, their voices creating a cacophony of fear, anger, and confusion. The chamber, designed to promote peace and understanding, buzzed with tension. Chief Counselor Murthok, an ancient being whose species had founded the council millennia ago, called for order with his ceremonial staff. His wrinkled face showed the weight of responsibility as he addressed the assembly. "We are here to discuss the recent incident involving the previously isolated species known as humans," he began, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. Ambassador Veltane immediately stood, his blue skin flushed with indignation. "Chief Counselor, I demand immediate sanctions against the Zephyrian government. Their illegal contact with the Deathworlders has endangered every civilized species in the galaxy." A wave of agreement rippled through parts of the assembly, but it was cut short when Administrator Yelana rose from her seat. The Zephyrian's forearms trembled slightly, but her voice was steady and clear. "Honored counselors, I take full responsibility for broadcasting the emergency signal. But I will not apologize for saving 10,000 lives." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some delegates shouted accusations while others demanded explanations. Through it all, Yelana stood quietly, waiting for the chaos to subside. "The Vactor hegemony was slaughtering my people," she continued when the noise died down. "It destroyed our evacuation pods, killed our children, and laughed while they did it. Your civilized protocols left us to die while they debated proper procedures." An elderly delegate from the Alteron Confederation stood up, his insect-like features clicking with disapproval. "The protocols exist for good reason. The humans are dangerous. Their world is a nightmare of poison, predators, and impossible weather." "Yes," Yelana replied simply. "And that's exactly why they were strong enough to save us when no one else could." Meanwhile on Earth, President Kim Dae-jung addressed the United Nations in an emergency session. The Assembly Hall in Geneva was packed with representatives from every nation, all struggling to understand the implications of first contact. "My fellow citizens of Earth," she began, her voice carried live to every corner of the planet. "Today, humanity took its first steps onto the galactic stage. We did not seek this responsibility, but when innocent people called for help, we answered." The Russian delegate, Ambassador Petrov, raised his hand. "Madam President, what are the potential consequences of this action? The initial reports suggest these aliens consider us dangerous." Kim Dae-jung's expression hardened. "Let me be clear, we will not apologize for defending the innocent. If that makes us dangerous in their eyes, then perhaps their definition of civilization needs to be reconsidered." In the depths of Vactor space, Overlord Zekanoth received the battle reports with cold fury. His throne room, carved from black volcanic rock, echoed with the sound of his claws scraping against stone. The massive reptilian ruler had built his empire on fear and overwhelming force. But now primitives had humiliated his finest fleet. "How many ships did we lose?" he hissed to his cowering intelligence officer. 12 destroyed, sir. 15 more severely damaged. Commander Theshvar's flagship barely escaped." Sekonath's eyes blazed with rage. "Bring me everything we know about these humans, their weaknesses, their fears, their precious homeworld. I want them to understand what happens when primitives dare to challenge the hegemony." The intelligence officer bowed deeply. "Yes, my lord. What are your orders?" "Prepare the second conquest fleet," Sekonath commanded. "These Deathworlders think their crude weapons make them strong. We'll show them what real power looks like." Back on the Zephyrian colony, now under human protection, Admiral Park Min-ho received daily reports of increasing tension throughout the galaxy. Some species wanted to meet these new warriors, while others demanded Earth's immediate isolation. "Sir," reported Communications Officer Kim Sora, receiving diplomatic requests from 17 different species. They all want to establish formal contact. Min-ho studied the star charts on his display, knowing that humanity had crossed a line they could never uncross. "Signal Earth Command. Tell them we're going to need a much bigger fleet. 6 months." After the first battle, human embassy on Zephyr Prime bustled with activity that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. Ambassador Park Min-ho, the former admiral who had led humanity's first space battle against aliens, now found himself navigating the complex world of galactic politics. Instead of commanding warships, the embassy building itself was a marvel of cooperation between two species. Human engineering provided the sturdy framework, while Zephyrian architects added the graceful curves and flowing designs their people preferred. The result was something entirely new, a structure that belonged to both cultures and neither. Park Min-ho stood in his office reviewing diplomatic reports from across the galaxy. His aide, Lieutenant Kim Soo-jin, entered with the morning briefings and a worried expression on her face. "Sir, our intelligence sources report unusual hegemony fleet movements in Sector 12, she announced. "It looks like they're massing." For a major operation, the ambassador nodded grimly. He had been expecting this. The Vaktar hegemony could not let their defeat go unanswered. Their entire empire was built on the fear of overwhelming force. If they appeared weak, their conquered worlds might rebel. "Any word from Admiral Lee about our fleet preparations?" he asked. "The 3rd and 5th fleets are taking position at the agreed coordinates," Kim Soo-jin replied. "Our new allies? We're still outnumbered 3-1. Park Min-ho smiled slightly. "Numbers aren't everything. Hegemony is about to learn that lesson again." On the bridge of the Zephyrian defense ship Unity, Captain Oh Ji-hoon studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. The hybrid vessel represented months of cooperation between human and Zephyrian engineers. Combining the best of both technologies, human kinetic weapons sat alongside Zephyrian shield generators, while the ship's hull used Earth alloys reinforced. With alien materials that were lighter and stronger than anything either species could make alone, Captain called his communications officer, "We're receiving jump signatures at the edge of the system. Multiple contacts, estimated 50-plus vessels, go." Hyun had served in the Korean Navy before joining the Space Force, and he had learned to stay calm under pressure, signal the fleet. All ships to battle stations. And send a message to our human friends, the party is about to start. The Vaktar Second Conquest fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their red hulls gleaming with fresh armor and upgraded weapons. Overlord Zakonoth had spared no expense in preparing for this battle. He would crush the Deathworlders and their alien friends, then enslave any survivors as an example to the galaxy. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "enemy contacts confirmed. 30 human vessels and 20 of the Zephyrian hybrids. They're moving to intercept," Zakonoth studied the tactical display with cold satisfaction. His fleet consisted of 73 warships, including his personal dreadnought, Eternal Conquest. The primitives had managed to surprise his forces once, but never again. "Open communications to all ships," he commanded. "Today we show the galaxy what happens when savages dare to challenge civilized power." But as the two fleets closed for battle, something unprecedented happened. More ships began dropping out of hyperspace, vessels from species that had never fought alongside each other before. The Alteron Confederation sent a squadron of their insect-designed ships. The peaceful Delonians contributed their advanced sensor platforms. Even the secretive Void Runners emerged from their hidden bases to join the fight. Commander Lee Yoon-ji watched from the bridge of her destroyer, Seoul's Thunder, as alien ships took position alongside her human squadron. 3 months ago, she had never heard of most of these species. Now they were fighting and dying together against a common enemy. "This is incredible," whispered her tactical officer, Lieutenant Nam Ho-seok. "Look at their formations. They're coordinating like they've been training together for years." The hybrid fleet had spent months developing new tactics that combined the strengths of each species. Human aggression and Zephyrian technology worked together with Alteron precision and Delonian sensor capabilities. The result was something entirely new in galactic warfare. The battle began with the now familiar sight of human kinetic weapons tearing through hegemony shields. But this time, the tungsten rods were guided by Zephyrian targeting systems and protected by Alteron escort fighters. When Vaktar ships tried to retreat, Delonian sensor ships tracked their movements and directed human pursuit squadrons to cut off their escape routes. Zakonoth watched his carefully planned attack fall apart as the Allied fleet moved with impossible coordination. His ships, designed to fight individual species with predictable tactics, couldn't adapt to an enemy that combined multiple fighting styles into something greater than the sum of its parts. "Sir, we're losing ships across all sectors," his tactical officer reported, his voice filled with panic. "They're using tactics we've never seen before." "Impossible," Zekanoth roared. "Yes. Civilized species don't fight like this. They follow rules." That was exactly the problem. The hegemony had built their empire by understanding how civilized species fought and developing counters to their tactics. But humans didn't fight like civilized species, and now they had taught their alien friends to be just as unpredictable. As his flagship shuddered under the impact of human weapons guided by alien sensors, Zekanoth finally understood what he was facing. This wasn't just about the Deathworlders anymore. Humanity had done something far more dangerous than winning a battle. They had shown the galaxy a new way to fight. The Alliance held, and the hegemony learned that some primitives were more dangerous than they had ever imagined.